Ladies and gentlemen, greetings from your respective positions. The situation is serious, very, very serious. Russia is no longer waiting for anything. It is unstoppable. After the strike on 5 districts of Kiev, after this extremely dangerous and surgical strike that the Ukrainian capital experienced on this Thursday, April 24th, 2025, Russia is no longer limiting itself to that. Russia has just made the unwanted announcement. Russia is directly threatening NATO. Russia is announcing an imminent direct confrontation with NATO. Without ambiguity. The announcement is made by the Secretary General of the Russian Security Council, Mr. Sergei Shoigu. Sergei Shoigu, who has long been the powerful head of the Russian army, the Minister of Defense. So, what is actually happening? Why is Russia announcing a direct confrontation with NATO in the near future? This is what we are going to discuss in this video conference. But before continuing, I humbly ask you to share the video conference. It needs to be shared as much as possible. Make sure to give it a lot of likes. Share the video conference widely. Don't forget to always include our political slogan in the comments. You comment, to dare is already to win. Let's dive deep. Let's go. So, Russia is making this announcement following statements made by certain Western powers. Western powers that are mentioning the possibility of increased military support to Kiev. London, Paris, and others want to provide another type of military support to Ukraine. But this time, it will no longer be in the name of a peace mission, as they now know that peace in Ukraine, the peace agreement, may never come to fruition. They have therefore decided to target areas that they themselves consider to be strategic zones, sensitive areas. And in these areas, they want to send military personnel. Again, they want to send military personnel. And as if the Russian soil alone was not enough. Territories already occupied by Russia, they want to send soldiers there. What do they call this mission again? I think I'll find it. What do they call it? Well, I'll find it. They call it the reassurance mission. Reassurance mission. So, for them, it would be a way to guarantee peace in Ukraine. And this is what greatly bothers Vladimir Putin's Russia. It was the Secretary of the Russian Security Council, Sergei Shoigu, who responded. Who gave the warning? He expressed his deep concerns about a possible Western military presence on territories that Russia considers as part of its historical heritage. He says they cannot place military forces on territories that historically belong to Russia. It's like Crimea, Mariupol, and others. So, Russia says this is not possible. So, Sergei Shoigu says, according to him, if they do it, they risk provoking a direct confrontation between NATO and Russia. It's Sergei Shoigu speaking. He says, this could lead to a direct confrontation between NATO and Russia, with the specter of a global conflict at stake. So, NATO enters into conflict with Russia, and then it spreads and becomes widespread. Sergei Shoigu issues his warnings, makes his announcements through the TASS agency. So, Sergei Shoigu, it should be noted that he has led the Russian Ministry of Defense for more than a decade, over 10 years. So, he knows the Russian army well. He affirmed Moscow's position regarding the possible use of nuclear weapons. And if that happens, Russia will use nuclear weapons against NATO. That is very clear. And why? He says it. And here, the 7 options remain conceivable in the event of aggression against Russia and its ally, Belarus. Even if this attack only involved conventional means, this option is possible. That is to say, if they attack Russia with conventional means, they start to move onto territories historically belonging to Russia. And if Russia wants to talk, they send conventional weapons. Even if they have used conventional weapons, Russia will use nuclear weapons. That has been stated. So, he didn't stop there. He also insists on the necessity for Russia to respond with measures he describes as symmetrical and asymmetrical. And if they do it, Russia will react with symmetrical and asymmetrical means. I don't even know what symmetrical and asymmetrical means are. You can put that in the comments for us. What does it mean? Symmetrical and asymmetrical means? Help us out on this, please. He continues. So, Russia will respond with symmetrical and asymmetrical measures to any action perceived as a threat to its territorial integrity. Any action perceived as a threat to its territorial integrity, that means those people shouldn't even attempt to send military forces to those territories. Russia will use nuclear weapons, meaning without hesitation. However, what needs to be said is that these statements occur in a context where discussions about the possible deployment of reassurance forces in Ukraine are ongoing in Europe. Here is the name of this force: Reassurance Force. They want to deploy. Discussions are underway in Europe to deploy a reassurance force in Ukraine. So, Emmanuel Macron, the French president, mentioned the idea of a targeted military presence in strategic areas as a deterrent measure. That is the thought expressed by Macron. But on the other hand, the United Kingdom has shown support for this initiative, although its forces are neither designed as peacekeeping troops nor intended to engage directly in combat. Do you see to what extent these people are so pretentious? They want to send forces into Russian territory. Yes, moreover, it's no longer in Ukraine. And then they say that. Firstly, these are not peacekeeping forces, and they are also not forces that will go to engage directly in combat. This means that these forces will go, and these forces will have a mission, an order. Do not engage directly in combat, but if in such and such a situation, engage. That's what it means. So, alongside this firm stance, Sergei Shoigu warns that any state, he issues a second warning. The Secretary of the Russian Security Council, the former Minister of Defense, Sergei Shoigu, he issues a second warning, second threat. He says, any state providing logistical or territorial support to an operation directed against Russia could also be considered a legitimate target. So, in the mission there, the mission to which the reassurance force will depart, any state that provides logistical support on all levels to this mission, that state will be considered as a legitimate target. Then he continues and says, the Russian nuclear posture targets states or military alliances that possess notable offensive capabilities, or weapons of mass destruction, and that consider Russia as a threat. So, Russia will use nuclear weapons against all those states that join in and possess dangerous weapons, and consider Russia as a threat. That means, if they don't want Russia to use nuclear weapons, firstly, they should stop, even thinking about sending troops onto the ground. Secondly, they should stop thinking that Russia is a threat. So, ladies and gentlemen, here are the signals being sent out by the highest Russian security officials. We are waiting to see. So thank you all for sharing the video conference as much as possible. I will get back to you shortly with new updates. This was the voice of your one and only samurai.